At a family gathering, my girlfriend's cousin inquired about our wedding plans. She giggled and remarked, "When my genuine prospects dwindle." Everyone snickered. I quietly stood and departed. 2 weeks later, she discovered that prospects vanish quickly. Family reunions are a unique kind of torment. You endure an entire day exchanging trivial chatter with near strangers, consuming dubious potato salad, and feigning delight at being there. For me, last Saturday's reunion with my girlfriend's kin wasn't merely torment. It was where my relationship met its demise, and I was the one who ended it. Let me paint the picture. I'm Mark, 38, and I run a transportation business. My girlfriend, Sarah, 31, is my polar opposite. Her existence revolves around fleeting emotions, social ambition, and an incessant craving for approval. For 3 years, I found her unpredictability thrilling. Now, I recognize it as a glaring warning sign. The issue wasn't solely her character. It was her family. They're from inherited wealth, and never let me forget I'm not. I'm a man who built his company from one van and a mountain of debt. They're people who've never toiled a true day in their lives. To them, I was an oddity, the working class guy their darling Sarah was slumming it with. Their disdain was usually subtle, a snide remark about my truck, a veiled compliment about how well-spoken I was for someone without an elite education. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself their opinions didn't matter, but it was a gradual poison, and Sarah enabled their venom. The moment I realized I needed to plan my escape was 6 months ago at a charity event her parents insisted we attend. I was discussing supply chain logistics with one of her father's business contacts, a decent man. Her father approached, slung his arm around me, and with a hearty laugh said, "Don't let Mark trick you with his fancy terms. He's just an overrated delivery driver." The contact laughed awkwardly. I stared at my half-eaten shrimp appetizer. Later, I saw Sarah chuckling with her father as he recounted the tale to another group. That was the breaking point. That night, I created a new folder on my computer labeled Departure Plan. This brings us to the reunion at her aunt's sprawling lakefront estate. Dozens of unfamiliar faces, all sharing the same surname and haughty demeanor, surrounded me. I did my best to play along, but after 3 hours of conversations about yacht upkeep and investments, I was tempted to fake a medical emergency to escape. Sarah ditched me within minutes of our arrival, leaving me to navigate alone while she flitted among her cousins, basking in their adoration. I stood by the grill, pretending to care about a golf discussion with her uncle, when I noticed her cousin Brittany, a brash, abrasive woman, corner Sarah. Brittany always resented me, likely viewing me as a threat to their privileged world. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught the critical part. In a voice loud enough for the entire patio, Brittany asked, "So, Sarah, when's Mark finally going to make an honest woman of you? When are you tying the knot?" Sarah laughed, a high, tinkling sound she used to seem charming yet dismissive. She glanced at the circle of relatives listening, then at me, and smirked. "Oh, Brittany, don't be ridiculous," she said, her tone dripping with superiority. "We'll marry when my true prospects are exhausted." The group chuckled, her aunts, cousins, even her father grinned. It was a jest, a witty jab at the man who wasn't quite up to par, a temporary stand-in until someone superior appeared. In that instant, something within me stilled. Not anger, not pain, but the cold, resolute snap of a final choice. I'd been a fool, enduring their condescension, their insults, their barely concealed scorn, all for a woman who saw me as her fallback. I didn't speak. I locked eyes with each of them, Sarah, her smiling face, her amused family. Then I turned and walked away, not rushing or storming off, but moving deliberately through the crowd, out the front door, to my truck. I started the engine and drove off, never glancing back. I was finished. Update 1: the 2-hour drive home was pure, unbroken quiet. No radio, no calls, just driving. With every mile, I felt a burden lifting, one I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. The weight of striving to prove myself to people who'd already judged me unworthy. Back at my house, where she'd moved in a year ago, but which remained solely mine legally and financially, I went to my office and opened the Departure Plan folder. I'd already consulted an attorney and opened separate bank accounts, preparing for this moment, hoping it wouldn't arrive, but knowing it was inevitable. Around 8 p.m., my phone erupted with texts and calls from Sarah, her mother, Her cousins. Where are you? What's wrong? You just left, so rude. I ignored them all and began executing my plan. First, the locks. I'd installed a high-security system months earlier, claiming it was for our safety. In truth, it allowed me to change access codes and deactivate her key fob in seconds, which I did. The house was secure. Next, her possessions. I wasn't going to simply box them up. That was too neat. I wanted a statement, a declaration that I was no longer her safety net. I found a local charity that collects furniture and clothing for women's shelters. I called, explaining I had a substantial donation of high-end women's clothing, furniture, and personal items, mentioning designer brands Sarah owned. The woman on the phone was stunned. They were used to worn-out donations. This was a treasure trove. They scheduled a pickup for 9 a.m. the next day. I set aside only her irreplaceable documents, passport, birth certificate, and a few sentimental childhood items, in a small box. Everything else was up for grabs. Her bed, her desk, her wardrobe. At midnight, I sent one text to her father, who'd laughed loudest at her quip. "Sir, I am informing you that my relationship with your daughter is terminated." Her comment at the reunion clarified her stance on our future. Accordingly, I've donated all her belongings in my home to a local charity to be collected tomorrow. I've preserved a box of her personal documents and keepsakes, which she can retrieve from my office tomorrow afternoon. Please refrain from contacting me further. I sent it, blocked his number and every other family members, turned off my phone, poured a generous whiskey, and sat on my deck, savoring the peace of my home for the first time in ages. Update 2: the charity truck arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. It took the 3 workers over an hour to load everything: closets, dressers, the guest room she'd made her office. The house felt bare but refreshed, like it had been purified. The chaos began around noon. My phone, now back on, was flooded with furious voicemails and texts from unfamiliar numbers. Her friends, presumably. I deleted them without reading. Then came the inevitable confrontation. At 2 p.m., my doorbell camera alerted me. It was Sarah, furious, with Brittany, the instigator. I opened the door, keeping the chain on. "Mark, what's going on?" Sarah yelled. "My father said you gave away all my stuff. Is this a prank?" "No prank," I said calmly. "Since you're seeking better prospects, I thought you'd want a clean slate. I just assisted." Brittany stepped forward, indignant. "You're a monster. She loved you. She was going to marry you." "No," I corrected. "She was going to marry me when her real prospects were gone. I chose to remove myself from the last place slot. It's a dignified move, call it withdrawing from the race." Sarah began sobbing, dramatic tears. "My clothes, my furniture. That was valuable. My grandmother's antique dresser." "I know," I replied. "And I'm sure a woman with nothing will cherish that dresser. Consider it a kind act, a way to purify your conscience." "I'm calling the police," she screamed. "You stole my property." "Go ahead," I said. "I'll show them the text I sent your father, confirming you could retrieve your documents. I'll also provide a list of the dozen family members who heard you declare our relationship a joke and me your last resort. That's called motive, Sarah. You don't want that path." She knew she was defeated. Her tears turned to fury. "You'll regret this, Mark. My father will destroy you." "Your father can't touch me," I said. "I built my business from nothing with my own hands. I don't rely on a trust fund. I have something better, self-respect. You should try it." I shut and locked the door. Her final screams of my name faded as I walked away. A prospect officially expired. Final update: 6 months have passed. Her father's legal threats, as I expected, never materialized. He's a bully, but not foolish. A public lawsuit would expose his family's ugliness. Their smear campaign, however, was another matter. Led by Brittany and Sarah's cousins, they painted me as an unstable, insecure man who overreacted to a jest. They claimed I had a meltdown and spitefully donated Sarah's belongings, saying she was fortunate to escape me. I ignored it initially, uncaring of their opinions. But when it impacted my business, Sarah's uncle, a well-connected man, spread rumors, costing me clients. I fought back, not publicly but strategically. I hired a skilled private investigator, targeting Brittany, suspecting the loudest critic hid the most secrets. Within a week, he uncovered gold. Brittany, the impeccable socialite, was having an affair with a prominent, wealthy, married man, her father's key business rival. She was also misusing a company credit card from her father's firm to fund their lavish hotel stays and dinners. I compiled everything, receipts, texts, photos, into a plain envelope and sent it to Brittany's father. No note was needed. The smear campaign ceased overnight. Rumors about me evaporated. Brittany's social media went silent. I heard her father disowned her, and her lover's wife initiated a public, messy divorce. Sarah's life, from what I've learned, has been a series of rude awakenings. Without me to cover her expenses and provide a comfortable home, she moved back with her parents, a humiliating blow for someone obsessed with image. She got a job and is reportedly awful at it. The world, it seems, isn't as enamored with her as she is with herself. Her family, who laughed at her cruel jest, has faced quiet repercussions. The reunion incident, followed by Brittany's scandal, has made them outcasts in their elite circle. Maintaining an air of refinement is tough when everyone knows you're spiteful, arrogant bullies. I saw Sarah once, a few weeks ago, dining with my new girlfriend, a true partner, not a dependent, at one of my restaurants. Sarah entered with friends, saw me, and our eyes locked. Her face showed shock, anger, and perhaps regret. She and her group turned and left. The ultimate revenge wasn't the donated items or the locked door. It was forcing them to face the world they'd built, a world where I was no longer an option. Sarah saw our relationship as a fallback, a last resort if better prospects failed. I removed that safety net, letting her fall, and she's still falling. She wanted to wait until her options were gone. I just accelerated the process, opening a world of better possibilities for myself. And I haven't looked back.